Hey everyone, welcome. Today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Gary Miller. Gary is one of our security solutions experts here at Axxys. He's been on our team for several years, been very key in helping us build and continually refine the security programs that we have for our clients. So Gary is a CISSP, that stands for Certified Information Systems Security Professional. He's also a certified ethical hacker, and I know before you got into security, you did lots of things with Cisco and Microsoft and kind of all the fundamental compute things, if you will.
That's right.
So Gary, I want to thank you for taking time today to sit down with us and specifically to talk about incident response. So lately we've been doing a lot of incident response planning for our clients, and I thought it might be helpful just to talk through some of the experiences that you've had, kind of what we're learning and what we're seeing out there.
Absolutely.
Interestingly enough, I got an email today from one of our insurance partners, and I want to share some of these stats to kind of help understand and set the table on why incident response may be important to your business. So ransom leak sites reported their second highest quarter ever in total number of victims being reported. Quarter over quarter, we have a 102% increase in the average ransom demand, and then year over year, a 19% increase in third-party breaches. And so sure sounds like something that we could all use. So let's kind of start there. What is incident response?
Well, incident response is a corrective security control. It's a natural evolution of our defense in depth strategy. We have our preventative controls, and then the next layer we might have our detective controls. Well, we now have a layer that guides our response during an incident from detection to full remediation. So incident response does play a critical role in that prevent, detect, respond cycle. We use a defense in depth strategy, as you may know. It involves layers of security controls fighting off attackers. It assures us that when one layer eventually is breached, we have other layers there to compensate for the other layers, so to say. I'll provide a link to a great article which details the defense in depth strategy. If we could include that with the video, I'd recommend you taking a look at that. It's a pretty short read, and it really details that strategy really well. It's also worth mentioning that we currently deploy IR capabilities into organizations as a document-based control. That means it's based on a set of documents, the core of which are the IR policy and the IR plan. Those guide us through any security incidents that may occur in the organization. But we also might include documents called incident response playbooks. Those are written to guide us through specific types of incidents.
Oh, cool. Hey, I'm curious, why do you think we're being asked more often now to do incident response planning for our clients?
Well, mainly right now it's regulatory. Many businesses are realizing that they're bound by particular government regulations, which involve specific requirements for notifications of security incidents, particularly data breaches. They want to make sure they follow the regulatory guidance to avoid any sanctions that may be involved. Having an incident response plan, which would include already worked out detailed notification guidance based on incident severity, scope, and other factors, is a vital piece of regulatory compliance. HIPAA is a great example. You may already know if your organization uses, processes protected health information, you'd fall under those federal HIPAA regulatory requirements. FARS is another one we see a lot of. That's the Federal Acquisition Registration System. Any organization that works with government contracts, receiving and processing government data, for example, would fall under the FARS.
Interesting. So we mentioned regulatory a couple of times, but we work with a lot of small clients that don't have specific regulatory compliance requirements. What about those companies?
Well, sure, no problem. But first, it's worth mentioning that a lot of times during our deployment of these incident response capabilities, we've realized that there's a regulation that we're supposed to be following. For example, did you know that there's a new Texas law, not a federal, but a Texas law that would affect residents of Texas? It's called the Data Texas Privacy and Security Act, the TDPSA, and it was passed recently. The law became effective just last month, July 1st.
Wow.
Yeah, so also if you operate in another state, they may have a data privacy and security law that you might be fall under
Interesting. So like CCPA, I think the California Consumer Privacy Act.
Yep, California, one of the first states to have that type of law, and we're seeing more and more states come up with that. So we want to make sure and check. But besides regulatory compliance, another big deciding factor to begin IR planning would be related to your cyber insurance policy. Those policies may include discounted premiums for customers who maintain an incident response program. We're seeing more and more questions about incident response capabilities on those annual cybersecurity insurance renewal forms that we love to fill out. So we know that they are interested in that type of stuff. But finally, if there are potential threats to your organization that keep you up at night because you feel you may not be prepared for a major security incident, it may be a great time to think about adding an incident response program to your security tool set.
So it all sounds pretty involved. Where would someone start?
Well, first and foremost, we want to identify an incident response team.
Okay.
That team would be made up of employees from the organization. Each IR team member would have a vital role in the overall incident response process. Yep. Now, typically an Axxys employee would have the role of the security analyst on that IR team. That security analyst should be focused primarily on the analysis phases of the incident response process. That will leave the internal side of the incident response team to handle the more administrative type tasks, such as notifications. Once we identify the IR team members, depending on their job role in the organization, we'd assign them specific responsibilities that match up with their capabilities. For example, we need an IR team lead, to which and from which all incident information would flow. Typically, our contact at the org plays this role. That's a perfect fit for them. We also need a communications lead. That would be the person responsible for all notifications during the incident.
Got it. Okay. So I think I heard you mention the analysis phases. What all is included in that? What does that mean?
That comes up in the next step. So after we identify the IR team, we'll begin to work together to build the program and the documents. The first thing we'll do is we're going to agree on an incident response framework to use, and that framework will consist of several phases. The reason we want to adopt an IR framework first is because it guides every aspect of our IR program as we build it and as we use it. As we work to create the IR plan and playbooks, we'll structure all the documents to follow the framework. As we build the program, the IR team will become familiar with all the phases. We'll all know which phase we're in, which phase comes next, and how to get there. We'll all be speaking the same language, so to say. Here's a real common incident response framework. This is from NIST. NIST, as you may already know, is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. It's a federal agency under the Department of Commerce, and among other things, they provide guidance on cybersecurity topics, which can be leveraged by the private sector. The NIST framework here consists of 4 phases: preparation, detection and analysis, eradication, it's hard to say that word sometimes, eradication, containment, and recovery is the 3rd phase, and finally the 4th phase is post-incident activity. This is a widely used framework which we have used and we could use. There's other options, though. Here's another competing, widely used industry standard framework. This comes to us from the SANS Institute. This one's sometimes referred to as the PICERL. That's PICERL. Those initials are the first letter of each of the phases. The SANS Institute, it's a private company founded around 1989. They specialize in InfoSec, cybersecurity training, and the like. And one of the main topics that they're known for providing training and certification for is incident response. Notice how the two of the widely used frameworks I mentioned, how similar they are. Really, the main difference in the two is the SANS version sort of breaks up the phases that are combined together in the NIST version into individual phases. So you end up with 6 phases instead of 4, but the general phases are very similar.
Sure. Interesting. So we've talked about regulations, compliance, all those things. Put together a team. What kind of things should we be planning for? Are these just kind of what-ifs that we come up with?
Well, once we've completed the IR policy and plan, which remember, those cover guidance for any type of security incident that may befall the organization. Well, we may decide to create IR playbooks. Those would indeed focus on specific incidents that the customer would want to plan for. To plan for and select those topics, we would want to agree on what the most likely incidents are to happen to the organization. Another factor in deciding that would be any security incidents that have already happened in the past. is a good choice to make. Another factor could be very high severity incidents that are rare but so impactful that pre-planning a response almost becomes a requirement. You mentioned earlier those nasty ransomware stats. Ransomware is a great example of a very high severity security incident. We certainly don't expect to happen, but its impact is so great if it does happen that it certainly could use a predetermined, documented plan in the midst of what would be a very chaotic and stressful time.
Sure. Okay, so we've now realized that we have some regulatory compliance reason. Maybe it's insurance. Maybe we just want to sleep better at night, as you mentioned. We've put together our incident response team. We've come up with a policy, a plan, some playbooks. What's next?
Well, Wade, the last thing we'll do before completing the incident program initial launch is we want to conduct our first tabletop exercise. Tabletop exercises involve coming up with scenarios where security incidents occur in the organization and then discuss how we would respond. This would involve the entire IR team. We want to make sure that the responses are falling in line with our existing security policies and definitely our new IR plans and playbooks. In this way, we can test out the plans without having to have an incident, which is something we want to avoid.
Sure.
But in this way, we can test our plans and make any adjustments that may be needed. It's pretty important to tabletop the plan and playbooks during the initial rollout to make sure we have them as solid as possible at the outset. But also moving forward in order to maintain the integrity of the incident response program that exists, we'll conduct annual tabletop exercises, at least annually, to test those plans and playbooks and update them accordingly, because think of all the environmental changes you might have in your organization over the course of a year. You're going to have new people, new processes, new technologies. All those need to be accounted for and infused back into the IR plan and playbooks.
Awesome. I'm going to make sure I got all this right. So first, we're going to look at regulatory requirements, maybe legal requirements. We mentioned the state requirements. Some companies just may want to plan for it because it'll help them sleep better at night. We talked about putting together the incident response team. We talked about policies, plans, and playbooks. Now we've tabletopped it, and we've done that on a regular basis. Once we've done all that, we've kind of raised the awareness, the posture, the capability of the organization in terms of incident response. I don't know about you, it sure sounds like something that every organization could benefit from.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Gary, I want to thank you for sharing your experience and knowledge around incident response today. For all of our clients and partners out there, I look forward to working with you on your specific incident response needs. We're always here. If you need us, just give us a call. We're here to help. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Wade.
See you guys.